Uganda is a fairy tale. You climb up, and at the end, there is a wonderful new world. Uganda is a fairy tale. You climb up, and at the end, there is a wonderful new world.
Anything Hakuna matata kama uwe kuchaguri pala upiga dansi yo hapo ulipo nataka vinyongo yo anywhere you go London USA no I be like Africa no I be like home anywhere you go New York Chicago no I be like Africa no I be like home Biko weruye wayo wayaka karibu kiti uchopewa nini ayayaya weruye wayo wayaka karibu kiti uchopewa nini lele
Round of applause for the band, if you can clap wherever you are. Awesome, awesome, awesome job. That's our resident band. They're called Titanic Band. Welcome one more time to Day 2 of the 3rd Privacy Symposium Africa. And of course, it's the data protection that is the main topic, a new dawn in Africa. Ronnie is my name again, Ronnie Havasa, and I'm honored to be your host. Welcome, welcome, welcome. In a short while, I'm going to be doing some roll call. I want to know where you are tuned in live from. So I'd like to see the chat room right now. Just drop your name, what you do, and where you are tuning in live from. And for all our Francophone speaking comrades and colleagues, the translation feature on Zoom is active, so please check that out and you'll be able to stay abreast with everything that's happening today. So welcome, welcome, welcome. I want to see you in the chat room telling us where you're from, what your name is, and what it is that you do. In a short while, we're going to, of course, get to our feet and get ready to have the national or the anthems. We're going to have 3 anthems. The African Union anthem will just have 1 stanza. The East African anthem will also have 1 stanza. And we'll close it down right here at home, Uganda, with the Ugandan anthem, 1 stanza. So wherever you are, I'm going to ask that now you assume a posture of reverence for the anthems that we are about to have. Let's start with the African Union anthem.
Tushereke pamoja ushindi kwa ukombozi wetu, tujitowe wenyewe, tusimame pamoja kulinda nchi ya Afrika Mashariki, tuwezeshe kuishi kwa amani, tutimize na malengo yetu. Jumuiya yetu sote tuilinde, tuajibike, tuimarike. Umoja wetu ni nguzo yetu, idumu jumuiya yetu.
All right, thank you very much, and you're all welcome back again to the third Privacy Symposium Africa. I hope you're having a good time. It'll be interesting to know how many of you were with us yesterday, and it'll be great for you to be able to share some of the highlights that you picked from yesterday, from the different panels that we had, from there's the research paper by Dr. Patricia. Whatever you learned, feel free to share, and we shall be doing a recap on some of those in a short while. But I can see some of the messages coming through. I have Thomas Jefferson from United States of America says they are happy to be here. Jefferson, you're absolutely welcome. I see Aroma Hamza saying happy to meet you all. It would be nice if you told us where you are calling in live from. I see someone from the UK, a PhD student. Habu, a PhD student from the University of St. Andrews, Scotland, in the UK. Hello, mate. How you doing? I hope everything is all right. Beautiful. And keep those messages coming. I see Nico joining in all the way from Belgium. You are absolutely welcome. And we'd like to see some of you, the rest of you, come on, just tell us where you are from, who you are, and what it is that you do. Just to remind you again, for our Francophone speaking comrades, the French translation option on Zoom is active. So simply go there, and I'll also advise all our speakers, including myself, to slow it down a little bit so that our translators can be able to translate in real time. Now, very quickly, just to remind you about our sponsors, I would like to say a big thank you to the Ministry of ICT and National Guidance. Thank you so much for the good job done. Digital Human Rights Lab. Of course, we have Katende Sempeba Advocates. Thank you. We couldn't have done this without you. We have Nitra Uganda driving the IT revolution here in Uganda. We have PI, Privacy International. And last but certainly not least, we have Media Network. Thank you, thank you, thank you so much. Now, in a short while, we're going to get straight into business. And just to give you some heads up on what we're going to be doing today, we have 2 panel discussions, and we have 1 workshop. The workshop will be on valid consent, and I'm sure if you have your program, you can see that. And then we shall have 2 panel discussions. Our first panel discussion for today will be on the effects of COVID-19, testing and vaccination to privacy. What effect has that had? And the next one will be on national ID systems, the safety of personal data, the right to privacy, and of course, like I said, the one I'm looking forward to on the last day, Friday, is the privacy scorecard. And we're going to see how the different sectors and different stakeholders have performed. But for a quick recap, especially for those of you who were not here yesterday, if I could just have the chat room again, I'd like to see if people are sharing highlights. What stood out for you? What did you learn? And who are you and where are you tuned in from? Hamza there saying from Uganda in Luwero, you're welcome. I see a Hunter there tuning in from Cape Town, South Africa. And you say you work with, I think, Alt Advisory. Thank you so much. Good to have you here, Hunter. And I also see someone from Nairobi, Robert Karanja from Omedia. Happy to be here. Send our shouts out to Omedia. Thank them so much for the wonderful job they've done partnering with us. But for those of you who are not here, here is a little highlights video of what transpired yesterday. So check it out, and hopefully it will bring you up to speed.
On behalf of Unwanted Witness, I take the pleasure to welcome you all to this third edition of the Privacy Symposium Africa 2021.
We acknowledge that businesses and governments need personal data to be able to identify us, to provide services, to understand our needs, to improve the services they provide to us, and many other objectives. However, the personal information must be collected and used in compliance with the various laws governing personal data across the region and the globe.
The world is now moving to ensuring that people live with dignity, their personal information is protected. It's important that civil society plays a critical role in creating awareness around data protection, what it means, how their rights can be achieved.
It is important that anyone who understands this topic also amplifies it. We are making efforts to also speak in our local languages, and that is not very easy when you talk about digital language, but we are making efforts in that area.
How do we protect data? We can use so many controls, but I'll just pull out a few that you can use as an organization. So one of the ways that we can do this is by making data obscure, unclear, or unintelligible. We can use masking, or we can use tokenization to make sure that the personal data that is being transferred, that is in transit, is actually unclear and unintelligible.
All right, we'll be having the band just giving us a small interlude just before we invite the first panel.
Biggie, heavy, baby, do you want me? How about biggie, heavy, I said, do you want me? You're the one I want to. Before my liver starts to fail, you're the one I need, oh. Before cassava starts to hail, if I ever leave, oh, make water carry me, they go far away, far away. So I am looking for resistance. Show my love, oh, he get it done. Be the way design now. So I am looking for resistance. Show my love, oh, he get it done. She the way design now. Say give me assurance, assurance. I give my baby assurance. I give my baby lifetime insurance. Assurance, oh, assurance. I give my baby assurance. I give my baby lifetime insurance. Biggie, heavy, baby, do you want me? Biggie, heavy, baby, do you want me? I say biggie, heavy, baby, do you want me? Biggie, heavy, baby, do you want me? Love is sweet, so when money enter, love is sweeter. Pepper store, so brother can look at the cold and nature, oh. She the man, they got to go away. And I am looking for resistance. Show my love, oh. She go enter Atlantic, they cause disaster, oh. And I am looking for resistance. Show my love, oh. She go follow Atlanta, they cause disaster. Say give me assurance, oh. Yeah, I give my baby assurance. I give my baby lifetime insurance. Assurance, oh, assurance. I give my baby assurance. I give my baby lifetime insurance.
All right, beautiful, beautiful, beautiful sounds of our resident band, the Titanic Band, we call them. And in a short while, I'm going to ask them to play me something small as I get ready to introduce our first panelist. But in case you're wondering, you're not from Africa, that was a song by Davido, and I think it's called Assurance. So in the Nigerian accent, Assurance. Before that, I think they did one by Yemi Alade, Africa. So looks like today we are starting off with a Nigerian vibe. Let's see how the rest of the day plays out. But I'm going to ask the band to just give us one more song or tune just to usher in our moderator for the panel, and I'll tell you who she is, what she does right after this. Come on, Titanic, let's go. Beautiful song. Come on. Thank you so much, Titanic Band, and that one, Sondela by Rigo Madlingozi. I hope you enjoyed that one, and welcome.
Well, thank you, Ronnie.
How are you doing?
I'm okay. How are you?
Did you like the special dedication we played for you?
It's the kind of music that you feel in your toes.
Oh, you feel it in your toes?
Yeah, they say if you feel it in your toes, then it is the music that you should.
It has hit a home run. Yeah. Well, she felt it in her toes, and her wonderful name is Mego Twegomie Zake. And Mebo is a media personality. She's a lecturer. She is very equal to the task of moderating today. And Mebo is really going to be moderating a panel on the effects of COVID-19, testing, vaccination, what effects those have had to privacy. And just before I hand you the instruments of power, Mebo, I'd like to know, speaking of COVID-19, testing, vaccination, and privacy, which I'm sure you've prepped for, have you ever been to a medical facility and felt like, the doctor was asking more than he needed to know, Like you've gone with a headache and he asks you questions like, how old are you? Are you sexually active? What? Are you married? And you're like, what has that got to do with a headache? Have you ever felt like your privacy has been infringed on in that regard?
A couple of times it happens, especially in the dental office.
Oh, in the dental office?
Yes, exactly, dental clinic. And you wonder, okay, what does that have to do with my teeth?
Yeah?
Yeah, so...
Like what interesting question have you been asked by the dentist?
Where is your spouse?
Where is your spouse?
Or maybe I was too scared and I needed somebody to hold my hand.
You're probably freaked out and you needed someone to hold you indeed.
Yeah,
wow. Well, I'm going to let you take over. I'm sure you're prepped and ready. And so, ladies and gentlemen, a round of applause for Mebo as she leads us in this particular panel. I'll be back right after this.
Well, thank you so much, Ronnie. Here in Uganda, it's a very good afternoon. And of course, for the great panel that is going to be part of this discussion, I cannot wait to tell you about them. But also, Steven Napo, he's called Steven Napo. He's a global information security expert. A statement he made some time back makes more sense today more than anything, because the conversation is about data protection and privacy. And he said that digital freedom stops where that of the users begin. And he continued on to say that nowadays, digital evolution should never or must no longer be placed to a customer in a trade-off between privacy and security. Why? Because privacy is a valuable asset that should be protected. So we should say a big thank you to the unwanted witness upon holding, of course, a data protection and privacy dialogue, because this is evidence enough that on the scale of their priorities, it is actually at the top. And also a reminder that many social and government activities across our different countries usually collect big data for one reason or another, because they have to upgrade their online systems. But in doing so, there are a couple of questions that usually arise. And like Ronnie mentioned, my name is Mebo Twegumiezake. I am a media personality in relation to this panel discussion, the effects of COVID-19 testing and vaccination. We beg the couple of questions that usually come up. Can we confidently trust our governments that this big data that they usually collect in upgrading their online information, even if it is to inform public health, can we trust that they store it and actually keep it safe, following the legal or even actually the regulatory frameworks that are all in our countries? Now, please let us introduce some of the panelists for this today's discussion. And we will start off with Linda Bonyo. Linda Bonyo is from Kenya. She's a tech thought leader, a respected tech lawyer, and a licensed discussion on effects of COVID-19 testing and vaccination. And a reminder that this is the third Privacy Symposium Africa. And of course, I'll start off with our seventh panelist. That is from the UK, representing the United Kingdom, Alexandrine Pilot de Cobion. And of course, this question will be a constant to all of you, our panelists this afternoon. And it's very simple. To draw us into your experiences, good enough that we have representatives from different countries. So I'll start with you, Alexandrine. What is your experience with the personal data collection, at least in your country, amidst the COVID-19 pandemic?
Hear me properly. While I'm based in the United Kingdom, I'll be providing throughout the panel more of a global perspective of the work that we've been doing. National network of partners, which includes Unwanted Witness here in Uganda. When it comes to this first question, what we have been seeing over the time, throughout the pandemic, when it comes to processing of personal data, we saw really governments, running to collect vast amounts of data with often very little benefits, even some of the evaluations that are emerging now. And really importantly, one of the things that we saw missing was really the time taken to think about what would be the safeguards that would be needed. And that had a huge impact on the trust, but also on ensuring an effective public health response. And so in many instances, it was unclear whether the data processing activities were driven by the needs expressed by the public health sector, or whether more of a political move by governments and companies to appear as if they were taking action. And so one of our reflections really is that going into the pandemic, we felt that governments and companies had forgotten, all of the work, the documented harms, and some of the concerns and the need for safeguards that had been already articulated pre-COVID in terms of some of the measures that have to be taken, be it, some of the data protection safeguards, but also understanding some of the impact that some of these data processing activities would have, and also limiting as well. Digital tools need to be designed with clear purpose and function in mind, in order to ensure, most effective and uptake. And we didn't see many things like that. And then an element that I'm sure some of the other panels will pick up on as well, is this over-reliance on the digital solutions without maybe thinking of some of the impact that might have, some discussions that we'll have later on around exclusion and the digital divide. And then linked to the element of trust, there was not enough public inclusive discussions to allow for transparency and accountability of the decisions that were made during the pandemic when it came to the processing of personal data.
Well, thank you so much, Alexandrine. I want us to bring in the executive director, bring in Uganda in particular, so that we see if we can relate to that global perspective. She talked about digital solutions. She talked about inclusiveness of the public in some of, the digital tools that have actually been used in collection of this information, if the public has actually been involved. Dorothy Mukasa, who is the team leader here at Unwanted Witness Uganda, can you relate, or can Uganda as a country relate to the global perspective that Alexandrine has actually given us?
Pointed out relates to what was happening in Uganda. For example, the rush to use digital technologies in the instances of contact tracing, mass surveillance communication, in order to look out for who is infected, to be able to track the different individuals in the different locations. There was geolocation technology being used to be able to track these individuals. But also what was most disheartening is that there was no, in all instances, there was no legal framework that really points to the protection of individuals, and also to the accountability, like Alex has mentioned, to the accountability of the authorities in using these different technologies to be able to really move into to curb the pandemic. I also remember in the African Network of Data Protection Authority really came out after monitoring the entire situation. They were really concerned that they came out and made a declaration regarding the protection of personal data in the context of COVID, and further emphasized that the right to privacy should be respected by all governments while collecting personal data. However, this wasn't heeded to. There was non-proportionate violation of sensitive personal data, it was very common. For instance, in Uganda, we had personal health data, being published on social media, with very particular identifiable data. For example, who the person is, their name, their contacts, their both physical and telephone contacts. All this information was online. It was total disregard of people's privacy. And this in the long run, we would see people being discriminated. There was stigma as a result of evasion of people's privacy. Communities generated a lot of stigma towards individuals that were really whose information was being put out in the public. So yes, I do relate with whatever the global context in terms of the rush to use technology, but also disregarding the different principles of human rights standards. Mabel, thank you.
All right. Well, thank you so much, Edie, there. And most of the time critical to mention when the data protection and privacy discussion is ongoing is that many African countries do not have the current baseline protection laws, and others only have draft legislation. So I want to bring in Linda Bonyo from Kenya so that we find out if it was any different in terms of experiences that is in Kenya amidst data collection during the pandemic.
Agree with comments by the executive director and say that I think this was, in as much as it was a global problem, it was also very specific to the countries. Different countries had different experiences. And just to speak a bit about Kenya, would be, I think the experience that we see in Kenya, we have a not so new data protection law that came in place in 2019. And a few months later, we had COVID in March of 2020. And so the law in Kenya then did not ideally provide for the regulations that would regulate civil registrations, for instance, and also did not really cover a lot of the government agencies at that particular point on how they could collect data. And so that is a challenge that I think we saw, but through the COVID period, the Office of the Data Commissioner came into full force. They came up with regulations covering, government agencies one, and then also now have a draft regulation on registration of controllers and processors. We hope that would ideally come into force soon. But also I think looking at the global context would be, I think it's important to see the information breach, the data breaches that we've had. I think there's a really interesting case in the UK during a bank holiday. There was a breach of about, I think, 20,000 positive patients who had tested positive for COVID-19. And this information